You are listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we'll be featuring Harnessing Edelweiss for Discoverability, a session that was presented at Children's Institute 2024 in New Orleans.
Welcome, everyone, to Harnessing Edelweiss for Discoverability. So introductions. Hi, everyone. My name is Deidre Dumpson. I am the Director of Client Success at Edelweiss. Prior to coming into this role, I was a bookseller at Word Bookstores in Brooklyn, New York, and Jersey City, New Jersey, for those of you who may know Christina Onorati. Yes, that was my old crew. I'm sure there's some Word people here. Super excited to be with you here today. My role at Edelweiss is essentially helping folks with education, knowing the platform, how to use it, and that includes booksellers like you all, publishers, librarians, readers, reviewers, et cetera, et cetera. And so before we start talking about Edelweiss, I'll let my fellow panelists introduce themselves.
Hi, my name's Taylor Carlton. I am the Children's Programming Director and Children's Book Buyer for both frontlist and backlist purchasing at Brazos Bookstore in Houston, Texas. We are Houston's oldest independent bookstore. It is our 50th year this year, which is really exciting. And we are a kind of small to mid-sized store with about 9 to 11 staff members, full-time and part-time staff, kind of a mix of both. And we focus a lot on literary fiction as well as works in translation alongside general fiction and nonfiction. And then in our children's room, I am currently working to tailor our children's collection to focus on children's books in translation, international picture books, and middle grade and YA books, as well as bracketing that with regionally specific children's lit, including Indigenous lit in our collections.
Hello, my name is Kat. I'm from Bookmarks in North Carolina. If you haven't heard of the bookstore, you've probably heard of our festival, which is the biggest in the Carolinas by the same name. But Bookmarks is first and foremost a nonprofit that's all about promoting literacy in the community.
Thank you. So as you see on the slide, today we are going to be talking about the kind of overall tools that Edelweiss has available to you that you can use in your store to help you discover, manage, and boost or share your children's literature inventory with your customers and also as a team within your store. So really quickly, for those of you who are new to the game or not necessarily familiar with Edelweiss, at its core, Edelweiss is a digital catalog platform that publishers use to catalog their titles, both frontlist and backlist titles. And booksellers, librarians, other book professional folks use it to look at, review, peruse forthcoming and backlist titles, as well as order those titles, access review copies, and so much more. So today we're going to be focused on, within the suite of tools that we have, what can you use as an individual, as a team at your store to have oversight over your children's literature, but also share the labor of ownership over your children's section. Something that I remember when I was at Word is that we had one person who was kind of our resident expert of children's literature, and we were so dependent on her. And she did our buying. She also, every time someone came in asking for a book, we were like, Amanda. And we realized how exhausting that was, and so we decided to try to use Edelweiss as a source for sharing that labor and helping support her as best as possible, but also share the responsibility of knowing what we have and hand selling that to our customers. So there's a way that you can use Edelweiss. There's several ways that you can use Edelweiss to do so. So let's get into it. As I said, today, sorry, I was moving slow. Today's agenda kind of covers these three core, I'm losing my words now. Today's session is kind of being broken down into these three core sections, which is discovering titles, managing titles, and then boosting those titles. And so we're just going to go into some tips and tricks for you all. But before I say that, I do need to say, if you are new to Edelweiss, do not worry. We are here to support you. This session is really just to give you some insight into what tools are available to you. And so my advice before we get into it is to take notes. Listen in. If anything stands out to you as, oh, this is something we need to be implementing into our store right away because I think this would help us with so-and-so, take note of that. And then reach out to us, come visit us at our table, come talk to me after this session. I'd be happy to pass off more information. Also talk to our panelists here who are our external experts that we like to lean on. Essentially their support. I know it's overwhelming and it can be a little daunting when you first look at Edelweiss, and I'm not here to make that worse. What we are here to do is say that there's so many possibilities. Take stock of that and ask yourself what's most important to you to maybe try tomorrow. Okay, so discovery. Within Edelweiss, discovering titles is probably one of the top uses of our platform outside of ordering, obviously, and a part of ordering is discovering titles. So this is a major tool of our platform, and there's a number of ways that you can kind of use Edelweiss to discover the books that you are looking for. Let's see. Starting off simple. The search bar. You can use the search bar in a very basic, traditional way of just going in and searching a title that you heard of or you heard from someone else and typing that in. But you can also use our search bar for keywords that are relevant to what you are looking for. So for example, if you are noticing like sticker books are flying off of your shelf and you just want to pad out that section of your store, and you know that that's something that publishers are often putting in the title of a book or as a descriptor of a book, then you can use that in the search bar to pull up a list of, for example, sticker books and review those and see if there are any options that you would like to add to your inventory. Once you search for a title, for those of you who aren't familiar with Edelweiss, we are kind of the holders of title data that you would not get access to in other places. So not only are you searching for titles, but you're also getting information about print runs, marketing information, key selling points, author information. Is somebody local? Is this covering something that might be relevant to your consumer base? These are all things that you'll have access to when searching in Edelweiss that you can use to guide your decisions on if this is a title that you want to consider for later use. Along with that, when you are searching for titles, you'll also be able to see if there's a review copy available. What I want to highlight about review copies for children's literature specifically is Edelweiss Reader. With Edelweiss Reader, it is a web-based app that you can use to quickly open up a book and review it, which is hugely important for titles that are image dense, and you want to see those illustrations and get an idea or a feel for if this is something that will work and sell in your store. Edelweiss Reader is a quick way for you to just pop that open and just flip through and see what those images look like as you are making buying decisions or even title discovery decisions. Another way that you can search for titles in Edelweiss is by using save filters. Save filters are a really cool way that you can create a general search using custom filters that you often refer to. This is really huge for us at Word, for folks that are niche booksellers. So folks that like really love YA fantasy, right? You can create a save filter for YA fantasy and have it say front list, for example. So you're only looking at forthcoming titles that fall under that genre category, and getting directly to the titles that you are looking for. And that can also benefit you if you are just saying like, oh my gosh, our YA section is moving so fast, I need to expand it. You can use save filters to quickly look through like, what are the HarperCollins YA titles that I missed that I can maybe add onto this front list order really quickly.
Yeah, and I found it really helpful too to filter out in terms of format. This past spring, I worked with a University of Houston professor on a grant-funded project that was a family literacy project where she had $2,000 and wanted paperback picture books to maximize her funds. And so I built a list off of that where I went and I searched paperback formatting specifically through my catalogs, paperback picture books, and it made it really simple to where I wasn't having to do external searches in Google or going to like the Houston Public Library or Harris County Public Library platforms. I could just do it in Edelweiss and then use those as external secondary reference tools. So if you're looking for something like format specific or building out backlist titles or working with community organizations where they're looking for something really specific, using filters is really an easy way to do so.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and what's great about filters is not only can you refine it to what you want to see, but you can also use it to exclude what you don't want to see. So in this example here, right, I just generally created a YA save filter, but I said we don't sell business, so we don't want that. So you can use filters to kind of play around and get to unique searches that are good for you and your store, so that you're constantly seeing. And I do want to point out that filters can be used throughout the site. So you can create a filter and just look at it on that Save Filters page and see all the titles across Edelweiss that fall under that filter. But you can also use it to filter down a catalog. You can use it to filter down the review copies page. You can even use it on your home page widgets. For those of you who are familiar, it's okay if you don't know that term, we'll talk about it. But if you have a review copy widget on your home screen, you can use your save filters to make sure that those review copy widgets are only showing you the titles that you want to see at that time. And that's changeable at any moment. Continuing filtering and saving, you can also refine any list of titles in Edelweiss by using the refinements menu. The refinements allow you to just apply on-the-fly filters to catalogs, review copies, or any search results that you pull up in Edelweiss. So say you don't have a save filter already created, or you don't want to do all of that. You just quickly want to get to YA in this catalog. Now that I said YA, I'm never going to stop using that as the example. You can use this refinements menu to get down to that genre, but you can also use it for a general list to get down to specific publishers, right? So we at Edelweiss have these book lists that we're sharing on a monthly basis. We recently shared a Disability Pride list. So you, for example, maybe want to go in there, but I'm currently building my Harper order. I only want to see the Harper titles within this list so that I can quickly add that to my order. So the refinements menu is a great way for you to just quickly on the fly get down to the titles that you are looking for. Once you find what you are looking for, there's a few ways that you can save and store those titles for later review, for later ordering purposes, or to share with your team. The first at the top there that I'll mention are tags. Tags are quick and useful internal keywords to help you group similar titles and more. So at Word, we'd use it on a monthly basis for staff picks. We had a different staff pick tag every month. I'd announce it to the team and say, everyone, go submit your staff picks using this tag by this date. That way, then, I would be able to go in, pull up that list of all the titles that were tagged, and then upload that onto our site or share it in the store with our staff picks, get those printed out, et cetera, et cetera. So tags are a quick way that you can have someone go into a catalog for you, right, and say like, hey, I need you to go in here and tag all the mystery books that you think I should absolutely order.
Yeah, and I know at our store, one of the tags that myself and our adult book buyer Keaton use, we have a big book tag. So for example, like the new Robin Wall Kimmerer book, because we sell Braiding Sweetgrass so often at our store, we tag that as big book, so it lets us know on our initial run through. It lets our booksellers who have access to Edelweiss know like, hey, this book's coming out. They can search all that, like, these are the titles we think are going to be really big sellers that our customers are really excited for. But then on the buyer end, when we go back through our catalogs, we know, okay, we're going to do a bigger book buy on these titles, or these are titles that we need to maybe feature on our store social media. So it's just a way for us to annotate our catalogs. And also, I think it's important if you are using your markup catalogs from your sales reps also use tags all the time, and they're tagging for things like regional interest. So if there's local authors in your area, and so filtering via your sales reps tags is really important too, because I sometimes discover new titles via that because they know their catalogs backwards and forwards. And so seeing what they are tagging things and what tags they're using kind of informs me of like what titles they're excited for or what titles I think would work well in our collection overall.
And at Bookmarks, we use the tags as a sort of communication system, not just between the booksellers and our inventory manager, but also our reps. So our main tag that we use is we have a tag that's literally just galley and then whatever our initials are in parentheses. And that is constantly in use for each of us. It's for our inventory manager when he disperses galleys when we get them in. It's for the reps so they know which galleys to send. So especially if you see a book in any catalog that you really, really want to read, it's important to make sure you tag it so they're aware, and then so whoever receives your galleys knows who to give the galley to so it doesn't end up lost in the air. But we use that, and then I tend to use tags myself to indicate when a book review is due, Indie Next reviews are due. It's just an easy way for me to keep track of the hundreds of ARCs that we have.
Yeah, and we also have like all of our booksellers have access to Edelweiss, so they have their individual tags as well of like Taylor's pick or Kirthy's pick or Morgan's pick, and that lets us as booksellers also get data from our people who are on the floor selling when we're purchasing, like these are the books they're excited for. And I know Kirthy can hand sell a book like it's their job, because it is their job, but I will know, okay, and I'll go to them and I'll be like, what do you want how big of a stack do you think you can sell down? And so it's a continuous conversation that makes your buying a little bit more equitable amongst your staff, and it's not just one person doing the purchasing for your store and then your booksellers up front aren't a part of the conversation. And I think it's important to have like equitable communication because it just makes a healthier environment at your store.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think something that came up here at the show while I was at the table is someone just saying that they felt like their team was disconnected from their inventory. And so practices like these are a great way to have your staff feel like invested in your inventory so that they can hand sell because they were a part of the titles that were put on the shelves. So thank you for that. Yeah, so tags are incredible. There are two other things to talk about that aren't as cool, but they're worth mentioning. Notes are a great way to just leave a quick internal message for your team, but also you can leave a message for your rep via notes, the publisher rep. And so my example here that I just left was like RY graphic novels could use some love. So just letting either your buyer know or even your rep know, like, hey, I'm looking for more titles like these. It would be helpful if you could point me in that direction, is great. But it's also a great way for you to refer back to titles that you leave notes on. I don't know if you could see, but in the top right-hand corner, you'll see like a 3 with a little pencil and then a 4 with a little tag. That's showing you how many titles in this list are tagged, how many have notes, how many have reviews, and it allows you to jump directly to those titles. So that's the value in taking the time to tag and leave notes, is that then you have that work that you can refer back to later on when you're ready to. The last thing to quickly mention is shelves. Shelves are a quick way that you could just mark if you are anticipating a title, if you're currently reading, if you finished reading, if you did not finish it, fair. You can note it in Edelweiss, and you as a team can see that across team members in your organization at your store, essentially. So if Taylor and I were both at Brazos and Taylor did not finish a book, I would be able to see that if I were the buyer and say like, oh, good to know. Maybe we don't want that one. Or, oh, okay, Taylor read this and absolutely loved it. Like you said, how many copies do you need? How many do you think you could sell? And then I think this is, yes, the last part of searching, discovering, and saving, we just wanted to mention collections. Collections are kind of cut from the same cloth of tags, but with collections, it is you creating your own catalog, essentially. So you can create a catalog of titles that you want to share amongst your team, that you want your team to look at, like, hey, we're putting together this display, this is what I'm thinking of ordering in for it, take a look at it really quickly. It can also be something that you just use for yourself, your own personal reference of collections that you just want to be able to refer back to. You can order from collections. You can create lists from collections. The major difference between collections and tags is tags are meant to be collaborative. It's a shared keyword that you can use to build lists as a team, whereas with collections, it's essentially you creating your own catalog that you can then share with others, and it's not editable. Did I just make up a word? By other folks in your organization.
Yeah, I love using collections if you're building out like a book club selection, because when I'm going through my catalogs and I see a title that I'm like, this would be such a great book club book, I'll put it into a collection, because then I can go back and refer to that as a reference tool, and it's more intuitive to me than tags because I'm a Pinterest person. Like, it feels like a Pinterest board that I'm building, and that's kind of how I view it. Also, at our store, we do an annual holiday list, and I find collections really helpful in my preliminary building of that, because I can break down each collection to age categories. So I can say like potential picture book titles, potential middle grade titles, potential emerging readers, potential YA, potential gift books, and kind of put books into boxes that I think would work, and then kind of whittle it down from there and then present it to my staff. Our adult buyer uses tags for that. So he'll tag like potential holiday list and then use collections to organize. So it's kind of whichever works best for your store and whichever works best in terms of your own workflow. But that's what I found really helpful with collections as well. Or if you're working with community partners, building lists for them, and then I can download that list as like convert to PDF instead of printing it out and emailing it out to them. And then it helps to, if you're working with a community event where they want to bring an author in, like here's some potential authors and their books and their titles, so you can integrate your event kind of marketing with Edelweiss as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and I did want to also say we use collections to, especially to share on order lists. So quick every week we would just say, like, here are the titles coming in this week. You can take a look. That's not a list that's adjustable, right? It's a set list. We're not changing that. And so we would just share that out with the team so that folks could take some time to look at, go grab a galley if we have it, if they want to quickly read something so they're able to hand sell it, or grab a physical copy if it's already in, especially picture books. Just quickly read it before we put it out on the shelf. Whew. Okay, so next, moving into managing titles. So now that you've discovered and found and you have titles, how do you manage what you have found and assess that, and then use that to make adjustments to your current inventory? Let's dive in. The first, and probably starting at the simplest level, is Edelweiss Community. For those of you that are not familiar, Edelweiss Community is our mobile-friendly version of the site that kind of removes all of the noise of the B2B functionality of Edelweiss, business to business, which is booksellers ordering from publishers, removing all that excess data and information and just showing folks basic title data, especially for folks that are just looking for books and looking for review copies and helping provide insight and information on titles that they're excited for. Edelweiss Community is a great first step or entryway for your frontline staff to get to know Edelweiss and get used to searching for titles, storing them, and accessing review copies, etc. A quick note that accessing Community is available for everyone. When you are in Edelweiss, on the top left of your screen, you will see a little snowflake icon. Funny joke, it is not a snowflake. It's actually a community of people, but it does look like a snowflake, so we accept it. But if you click that icon, it will take you over to Edelweiss Community, where your homepage will look more like this, and you'll see different book lists that you can get access to, different communities that you can join, new review copies that have been added to the site, et cetera, right there on your home screen. So it's definitely more book lover friendly, whereas Edelweiss Core is really designed for buyers and inventory managers. And so the really cool feature within Community is collaborative lists. I know a couple of folks came up to us and talked to us about them, but essentially collaborative lists is like tags or collections, but what you can do is have your staff go in and vote on them, write comments on them, so that you can kind of see what folks have shared interests in. You can also write comments like, oh, recommend this for anyone that's looking for books focused on grief, or recommend this to folks that are looking for friendships across different cultures or something like that. So you can leave quick internal comments within these lists, but also just use it as a space to build lists as a team, cool, fun, funky lists, displays, et cetera, et cetera. Whew. Along with discovering titles, I would highly recommend, and probably a first task to play around with in Edelweiss for folks that are completely new, aside from accessing review copies, is submitting reviews via Edelweiss. It is such a small feature that carries a lot of weight because not only are you writing your review for a title, but you're able to share those reviews with your team, with the publisher and with other booksellers by using Edelweiss. You can also submit your Indie Next nominations via Edelweiss for those of you that are not familiar. What's really cool too, along with, aside from sharing it with other folks, is that you can organize and download and share those reviews wherever you like. So we would pull our staff picks and upload it onto our Indie Commerce site. We would pull our staff picks and post it on our social media or add it to a cute little shelf talker and things like that. But also, I would selfishly use staff picks to recommend titles that I wasn't necessarily familiar with. So I would study my team's staff picks, and so that if somebody came in and asked for something that I wasn't necessarily familiar with, I at least knew how my colleagues would talk about it, so that I can kind of share that sentiment with the customer, and it usually worked pretty well.
Yeah, and one thing I really like using reviews for is we actually have a partnership with local schools in our area where I give them galleys or advanced readers that we get, and they distribute them to their book clubs and their students write shelf talkers for our store. So we have them displayed, and what I do is then I transcribe those into the reviews of these books. So not only are we seeing our staff reviews, we're also seeing community reviews as well. We have also community shelf talkers, so patrons of all ages can review books like they would a staff member. So we've started to upload those community reviews as well. So sometimes you'll see like Joshua, age 7, loves Aquanauts by Dan Santat. So we're gonna upload that review so it lets our staff members know like, hey, I can hand sell this because I know there's a shelf talker for it, but also it's a way for us to also submit that to the publisher to be like, hey, the young people you want reading this book are actually reading this book, and it's not just like a random 30-year-old that buys these books. And so it's just a really, again, equitable way to use Edelweiss and to organize who is reading your books and reviewing these books.
Yeah, so we also have a sort of community system. We have little cards up at the front desk and also on end caps around the store that community members can pick up and write their own reviews, and they hand them over to us and we stick them out in the store. And then obviously it's really good to then put them into Edelweiss because, like you said, it shows that this is the actual audience that the publishers published the book for, reading the book. And we have shelf talkers that we'll give to kids as well that they can then write on and pop into the kids section in the back of the store.
And then lastly, for management, and for those of you who are more seasoned users of Edelweiss or maybe already using analytics, is using analytics to see how your inventory is moving, performing, what sections are doing well, where is there room for improvement or growth, are there areas of your children's literature that you can possibly expand, like graphic novels, and are there other areas that maybe you could possibly whittle down and return some books to make space for those other sections that are moving extraordinarily well. So with analytics, you'll be able to essentially see all the titles that you bring in, how they're moving in comparison to other bookstores, what are other stores carrying that you may have missed, thank you, and should you consider ordering those titles in for your store, where is there room to expand and make this better for the people who are shopping this section. Moving to our last section of this session, which is boosting those titles. So now that you've organized around titles and they're there in your store, you want to make sure that you are screaming from the rooftops what you have and ensuring that everybody knows what's available and they're running to your store to get it tomorrow. There are a few ways that you can use Edelweiss to boost those titles, and there's a number of free tools available to you, as well as additional tools via analytics that you can use to help with boosting those titles. First, we talked a lot about tags, but is just building and exporting and then uploading anything that you're doing in Edelweiss to your e-commerce platforms. So you can use tags to build out a list, or you can use a collection to build out a list, for example, and then you want to export those ISBNs. You can upload them into your indie commerce site and say, oh, check out this cool list of summer reading titles. You can also upload that onto your bookshop.org storefront page and highlight it there. And so there's a number of ways that you can build and export and share lists of title as you see fit. Edelweiss 360 is our email marketing tool that is a free benefit of analytics. So if you are an analytics subscriber, you do get access to Edelweiss 360. Edelweiss 360 is essentially using your POS data, all of the data that publishers are sending us, and creating this email marketing tool where you can easily pull all of that information into your newsletters and then target that based off of who's shopping what. So you can send targeted lists out to educators. You can send targeted lists out to anyone who's recently shopped potty books, et cetera, et cetera. Folks who love Mo Willems, new Elephant and Piggy, come get it now. You can essentially target folks based off of their previous purchase history with 360 with the click of a button. That is way less manual than what you would have to do with other providers. I think I skipped a thing. And then lastly, which is always important to mention, is that by being a part of analytics, you are contributing your store's data to aggregate market data. What you're seeing here is essentially reports that publishers get from us on a daily basis, telling them how their titles are performing amongst the indie book selling industry. And so by being a part of analytics, that ensures that your store's sales are being seen and registered by publishers and incorporated into their sales habits and practices. So I just rushed through that, sorry, but we want to leave room for questions. Now that I just word vomited, we just word vomited all of those things. I hope you got some helpful insight, but is there something that folks want us to go back to and elaborate on a little bit more?
Hi, everybody. Just a quick reminder for the Q&A. This session is being recorded, so we're going to ask that if you're able to, you can step up to a microphone, but if you can't, I will bring the mic to you. And to please speak clearly into the mic so everybody who couldn't make it to this session can hear it later. So who did? Okay.
Simple question, but we talk about exporting. I've always wondered, is there a way to import a list into Edelweiss? Let's say I have a list of ISBNs and I want to get I want to get analytics information or whatever. I want to do something else with it. How do I import?
Yeah. So if you want to pop by the table, I can screen share and show you this. But essentially, when you create a collection or you create a list, you'll have an option to just paste a list of ISBNs, and it'll just pull that list of titles for you.
Okay, I had a question about how to search collections, because some get emailed to me that are really great, like Edelweiss, the new releases coming out for the week. It'll get emailed to me and I can click the link and then I can go to it. But if I'm in Edelweiss, is there a way to search those kind of collections that are open to the public? Like, I don't know if there's other collections of books that are coming out in the coming weeks or things that aren't being emailed to me.
Assuming that you are saying you want to search for the collection itself, not within the collection, right?
like there's a lot of great lists that Edelweiss creates. So is there a way for me to see the Edelweiss collections that are being created and just search them? Because so far I've only been able to do it through my email. And then once I'm on Edelweiss, even if I go to catalogs, it shows my collections, but I don't seem to be able to search for like those Edelweiss collections.
Yes, yeah. So when you are on the collections page or the catalogs page, there is a way to search. And again, would highly recommend you come by the table. I can show you, we can show you how to do that live screen. But there's a little teeny search bar at the top where you can type in search. Yeah, because for the Edelweiss list, that is a catalog. That is not a collection. Your collections are only going to show you yours or ones that were shared with you. The Edelweiss collections, yes, you're going to have to search us like a publisher. It's a very weird thing.
Hi there, I'm Cassandra from Watermark Books and Cafe. I just recently became the children's book buyer for our store.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've really been enjoying it. It's very different from what I was doing before. I was in receiving and return, so it's a whole different beast. Something that I found incredibly useful that my adult buyer shared with me was the Edelweiss University. It breaks down so much of so for me, it has a book buyer's course. I don't know if it's available for everybody, those different courses, but they have ones available for booksellers. And it shows you how, guided screen sharing, how to navigate through Edelweiss, and just, if you have the time, take some time and watch those videos. It definitely helped for me as somebody who needed to see a screen and follow along and see somebody navigate through the site with their mouse, clicking on the different things, because sometimes I would just get lost. But as a book buyer, I found it so incredibly helpful to have those recorded resources.
Yes.
So one question that I have had is regarding collections, tags, notes, all of that. What is visible to whom? What's visible to reps, to other booksellers, to just my staff, to just me? And is there a way to change who can see that kind of stuff? I know that notes I can share with my reps, but for those other things, are there ways to change those permissions?
Yeah, I think on reviews, there's a little check box that says share with publisher. And so you don't have to share those with the publisher directly, but I have this question, what is visible to other booksellers versus what's visible to my staff? Because I know there's sometimes people just want it to be visible to their staff and not other booksellers, or comfortability with sharing with who's seeing what.
Yeah, so tags are internally visible by your team unless you choose to share it with the publisher. It's the same thing for reviews. Reviews actually are only visible to you unless you choose to share it with your colleagues and the publisher, and your communities is where it will get shared with other booksellers. So if you don't check those off, it will not be visible to other folks. Notes are visible internally unless you choose to share it with the publisher. Collections are only visible to you unless you share it with others in your team and others outside of your team. And then that was it, right?
Yeah.
If I'm forgetting something, come yell at me later. But I think that is it. Essentially, most stuff is only visible to you unless you choose to share it with others.
The analytics dashboard has all that great information about freshness, hit rate, relevance, and turnover.
Yeah.
For users new and old, can you define what those four things show?
Oh, you're really going to put me to work now. Yes. So freshness is telling you, based off of how many days your inventory has been sitting on your shelves since it last sold. How fresh is it, right? So if it's been sitting for a while, it's going to be stale, versus titles that only sit on your shelf for a day or two are going to be considered more fresh. So that's telling you how fresh your inventory is. Relevance is looking at the other indie booksellers and telling you, compared to others, how relevant is your inventory. And that is something you can take as serious as you want. We are not telling you you need to be like every other bookstore. We are just saying, hey, this is what other stores are doing, and this is how you are performing in comparison to that. Hit rate is telling you of the front list titles, so newly published titles that you're ordering in, how they're performing. Are they a hit with your customers? And then turn is telling you how many times an individual title is moving in your store. So a 1 means it's selling at least once. 2, it's usually turning at least twice, meaning it's selling, you're ordering it back in, and then it's selling again. So that's what your turn rate is telling you. There's more nerdy formulas and all that stuff online, and if you want to pop over to our table, I'd be happy to show you more of that.
I guess it's catchy. I also became an orderer like 3 months ago. So while I'd used Edelweiss, there's a whole lot more to it now that I have to go into. And I think you said with notes, you could not share it with your rep and your team internally could see it. But what about the reverse? I'm putting notes there to ask the rep questions or say, don't ship me this till whenever. Is there a way to make it just for the rep and not the other people, or do you have to delete it after you know the rep's seen it?
You can delete it. I think other people will see the note. Right, yeah, so regardless, other staff members will see the note if you share it with the publisher or not.
Quick question. My name is Ruth. I work at Consortium Book Sales and Distribution, so this is a distributor level question, so hopefully it's not irrelevant to you all. But there on my screen, I see 3 kinds. There's 3 tags. There's account tags. There's account tags. I think there's markup tags, and then there's tag tags. And help, what's the difference?
Account tags are the tags from that store, right? So your store's account tags. Markup tags are tags that sales rep are creating to mark up a catalog and help folks get to the titles they may be looking for. And then your tags are your tags. So tags that you have applied to titles and that either are for markup sales reps purposes or just for fun.
Fantastic. That was my guess on how that worked. And do they all follow the same sort of system of they're only visible to whomever you share them on every level? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Got it.
Even internally, no, sorry. I'm going to shut up and not lie.
I wanted to say one thing about the rep thing from the last question. One thing that our buyer does is when he has rep meetings, he has all of the questions that we would have had about titles and everything that he asks the reps. And then he puts together a Word document with any questions that the rep would have answered, any titles that they deem super important or anything like that that would really work for us as a bookstore. So sort of developing that kind of relationship with the rep so you don't feel like you just have to put them just in Edelweiss.
Yeah, and I think it's also important. We do our buying before we have our rep meeting. So we already come with our completed order and our own personal markups for the reps. So we go through our tags and our notes and collections before our rep meeting. And I have found that extremely helpful in building relationships with our reps and also being able to ask specific questions that our staff might have. Or if we have booksellers that are interested in the buying process and want to demystify that, we have that extra time because we do our catalogs beforehand rather than waiting for that meeting with our sales rep to sit down and do our catalogs. So if your store isn't already doing that, doing your catalog purchasing before and then using your rep meetings for like suggestions or places you might have missed, I highly recommend you do that, because I think it's really improved like the health of our store and also our relationships with our sales reps and how we use Edelweiss as well.
We are taking one more question, and then we got to close up, y'all.
I have a two-part question. The easy part, the fast part. When you place orders through Edelweiss, when you share them with your sales rep, do those actually get processed by the publisher faster than if you're, say, emailing in a document?
Can a rep speak to that?
If you place your orders through Edelweiss, do they actually get processed on the publisher end faster?
Yeah, Mike would be great.
When you place your order in Edelweiss, the rep has to upload it. So it's a matter, it sends the order to the rep, but the rep then has to manually deal with it. So it's not, there's no automation.
So it's not like EDI?
No, it's definitely not like EDI. Okay. And in fact, as a rep, if you do place an order, please, we do get notations within Edelweiss that an order has come through, but it is a great kindness to email your rep and say, I finished my order, or I have a pending order, please look at it, because we don't get an automatic note.
Okay, so that was part one. Thank you, Joanna. I do not have a book industry POS system. So how do I get my we use Lightspeed. So how do I get my POS information into Edelweiss?
Yeah, so it's essentially going to require a manual data share. Unfortunately, there are cases where it's just manual on the front end, and then once it's set up, it's as simple just sending over a quick file as a part of your closing process. So I would say reach out to our support team, support@abovethetreeline.com, perfect transition, because they just have the experience of working with stores who need to do a manual upload because they do not have a compatible POS system. And so we'd be happy to talk with you about that. Okay. Thank you all. I know folks are leaving. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA website at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!